Welcome back to another video. My name is Duane, and this topic is going to be a little tougher. And it's something that I don't necessarily like to talk about because I want to keep things focused on the positive and keep your momentum going. Because that's really critical in the early stages of this, because once you start riding the wave, so to speak, and are making good decisions and you're basically counteracting what your ex is doing, most of the time in that situation things work out pretty good. However, there are times where things don't work out pretty good. Either you've already made a bunch of mistakes throughout the process and now you're living with those consequences, or things just go bad. Now, one thing I do want to mention just on the going bad part about it is just because you get a bad ruling, that doesn't necessarily mean that the game's, everything is lost and the game is over. Look at other options. I'll leave a link to Alex Falcone's The Proper Person's YouTube channel, who talks a lot about the family court process, how to navigate it, and ways that he's successfully appealed certain things. A lot of good information there that can help your situation. One thing I'll just, before I move on from that, a lot of attorneys do not want to file appeals. Once a ruling comes in, they're like, well, there you go, it's done. And either they realize you don't have enough money to do it, or they just don't want to be a part of it. So don't necessarily think that your attorney is going to, be 100% on your side on this type of thing. Okay, the next part about this is when things do go bad and you're sitting there and your situation has just fallen apart. Maybe parental alienation's really kicked in. Maybe you're in a situation to where you don't get to see your kids at all. That can be an incredibly devastating thing, and even as I'm saying that, that can just be giving you a triggered PTSD response. I can relate to that. When I was going through this, I was so worried about how this was going to play out and what was going to happen, that the idea of losing, so to speak, was just emotionally devastating for me. So there was a period of time on this where I thought that I had lost, that everyone was telling me she was going to get full custody, she was going to get to leave the state. Not everybody, but I mean enough to where I was really worried about it. And I even started mentally preparing myself for that, and it really affected my relationship with my kids. Now, that's not necessarily what I'm talking about in this video. What I'm talking about is you're in a situation where you have lost. And you can be looking at your situation and just, your will to persevere could be just completely gone. Again, this isn't exactly something that I normally talk about on this channel, because I know that hearing this can really negatively affect people. And in the early parts of this, all of us are in a really fragile state. And being confronted with that can be really scary. But the reality is, this does happen. And the reality is, there are a handful of people on the channel who are experiencing that. They've lost their kids. They've been devastated through the family court system. And they're really struggling. The thing is even if you lose this battle, you can't just give up on yourself too. This is why I often say that we have to re-baseline our entire lives. It's like you hit reset on your entire life. And that's not easy to do. That is not easy to do. It doesn't matter what phase you're at with this or what you lost, because we all lose something on this. But it's really important to say, okay, this has happened. How do I make my peace with it? And how do I start to grapple back with a life? What I will say is there's a handful of people on this channel who've been confronted with this, who've looked over the abyss into the pit of hell, and they were able to, and not easily, but they were able to walk away and start getting their life back. A few of those people even hang out on the live streams and Discord. It's important to mention this because you owe it to yourself to figure out how to have some type of life. It's really tough whenever you're looking at somebody who's destroyed everything in your life, who's taken everything that's important from you, and you're thinking, well, how can I do that? Everything I was living for is now gone. Well, everything that you're living for yesterday may be gone, but what about tomorrow? And I know as I say that, it can be like, well there's what's the point? Well, there always is a point. And there always is a reason to keep persevering. If you can address this, do the best you can. You do the best you can. You give it your best fight. And if at the end of the day it doesn't work, you pick up the pieces and you take some time to heal from it. You take some time to learn from it. You take some time to figure out how to never repeat this again. But you owe it to yourself to at least try. You at least try to have a life after this. I don't know. I don't really know what the right words to say are. You know, I know what I would love to be able to pour into you, to have you feel that and believe it. But again, like a lot of things on this, it's one of those realizations that we have to come to on our own. That we have to wake up one day and say, okay, enough is enough. You know, that part's done. I've done everything to fight it. What do I do next? How do I move forward to make something positive in my life? So, I don't know. I mean, this is one of those topics that's really tough, and like I said, I oftentimes I don't address it because I know it's that dark reality that some of us are scared of it happening, but there's some of us who are living it. So if that's for you, don't give up. You can still hit the reset button on your life and start over and start, picking up the pieces. I've seen it. I've seen people on this channel who've been devastated by this situation, who after working through the emotional hits of this and the losses have been able to say, okay, I did my best. I tried. It didn't work. I lost my kids. My kids have been turned against me, but I'm going to pick the pieces up, start living again, leave the door open for their kids in case they ever realize what's happened, and move on. So on that, I'm going to wrap this up. So would love to hear your thoughts on this. If you have some ideas, better ways that I could address these topics, please leave that in the comments below, and I will chat with you on the next video. Take care. Bye.